right, in this video, we're going to take a look at records and actually programming records in VB.NET. And the best way to start with programming records is to understand what records are. So what is a record? When computer scientists or programmers are talking about records, what are they? Well, records are considered composite data types. What does that mean? Well, sometimes programmers can create records where several related items of different data types can be used with a single identifier. The programmer is creating a user-defined data type. And this creates what is known as a structured approach to programming, and we will create this in a moment using VB.NET. A composite data type, when we say there's composite data types, it refers to other existing data types when it is defined. And you might be saying to yourself, what does that even mean? Well, let's take a look at pseudocode and then actually create a composite data type using VB.NET so we can fully grasp this concept. So student is going to be our custom data type. And how did I come up with that? Well, think about the topic of students. Every student has an ID number, a first name, a last name, and a grade level, among many other things. Now, to keep things simple, we're going to focus on the ID number, the first name, last name, and grade level. But it's all going to work the same way. We could add as many things as we want. We can get rid of as many things as we want. But what we want to do is we want to lump these attributes together because they're all related. Now, we have different data types here. We have an ID number, which is integer. We have a first name, which is string. We have last name, which is string, and we have a grade level, which is integer. Because these are things all students have in common, we can create a custom data type that we're going to call student. So we're actually going to use a variable. We're going to define it as student that relates to these variables, these attributes. Now, when we talk about composite, we have integers and we have strings. And because we have integers and strings, they're going to be part of one custom data type. It makes it composite. Now, VB.NET has no idea what the student data type is. If I dimensionalize something as a student, it's not going to have any idea what that is. So we must define it before we can use it. So let's take a look at the pseudocode. So because we're creating a custom data type, we're creating a record that we are going to call student. It starts with the word type. Type is a keyword, so it must be in all caps. The next part of our pseudocode says, okay, you're creating a custom data type, a record. What do you want to call it? We have to give it a name. We're going to call ours student. And what are the attributes that a student has? When we define something as student, what are we going to be referring to? Well, we're going to be declaring an ID number as an integer. We're going to be declaring the first name as a string. We're going to be declaring the last name as a string and also the grade level as an integer. Once you have declared your variables, your composite data type, what you're going to do is simply in the type. And yes, this is one word. Yes, my keywords are in caps, which is proper for pseudocode. So if you're in a computer science class and you see people writing in caps, there's a specific reason for that. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, what we have here are variables with different data types. And we just said this a few moments ago. We have integers and we have strings. Because it refers to other data types, we say it's a composite data type. So let's go to the code in VB.NET and actually write this code. Okay, so I've created a program. I simply called it records, just as you can call it whatever you want, records, because this is dealing with how to write a record. And you'll see I've given myself some room in sub main, but what I really need to do first is define my custom data type. And this is going to go outside the main sub. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in public structure. In Visual Basic, that's how we define our custom data types. We don't use the word type, we use public structure. Now you see there's a red line there. How do I get rid of that red line? I simply type in structure, and that will get rid of my red line. In here, this is where I create my custom data type. Now you'll see another red line, public structure. I have to give it a name. And we said we're going to call ours student, and that will get rid of any red lines. But this doesn't do anything. I actually have to dimensionalize those variables that I talked about in our pseudocode. So I'll put up the pseudocode so you can see it as we go along. So we had ID number as an integer. We had first name as a string. We had last name as a string. And we had grade level as an integer. I have now defined my custom data type, or my record, student. So what? This doesn't do anything. So let's make it actually do something. Why would we use this? So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to define it as student. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's say I have a computer science class. So I'm going to dimensionalize my computer science class as, I'll just do computer science, as student. And because I have defined what student is down here in my record, I can now keep like-minded variables or variables that have to do with certain topics. I can keep them together. I've created my own custom data type. I can keep everything together stored in a record. So how do we actually do something? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say enter the name of the students. Now, this is only going to deal with one student. If we wanted to do multiple students, we could create an array and run a for loop. This is just learning how to create records. So what we're going to do is we're going to do computer science equals console.readline, and that is wrong, and there's a reason it's wrong. You're going to see it's going to say, okay, well, computer science is student. You have to refer to what part of student you want to store it. So computer science has data types that are both integers and strings. Which one do we want to refer to? Because we're doing enter the name of the student, we're going to do first name. So now I'm saying computer science first name equals console.readline. I'll type in first name of the student. I could also ask them, what is the last name of the student? Or enter the last name of the student. Want to keep it consistent. So we're going to enter the last name of the student. And what I'm going to do to get the last name to store it inside computer science is computer science dot last name. Where is the computer getting that from? It's getting it down here. I've declared computer science as student, my custom record, my custom data type. All I have to do is type in the dot, and it will give me everything that is listed here. I just have to select what one. So there's two questions left. So this is learning how to store it, and then we'll output it. Enter the ID number, and that's an integer. So all I'm going to do is computer science. I need to select which part of my custom data type I want to use, which is ID number. So dot ID number. And then the last thing I need to ask them or tell them to do is enter the grade level. And that is an integer, and we called it grade level. So I'm going to do computer science because that is my variable. Because I've dimensionalized it as a custom data type student, I type in dot, and I can store it inside the grade level. And that will allow me to store it. That is how I store all the variables. Now, outputting the variables work the same way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clear our console. And then what we're going to do is we're going to output the name. So we're going to say the student's name is, or the student's first name is, and then I'm going to type in my ampersand just like we would when we're using customizable text and variables. And I'm going to type in computer science dot first name. Then I'm simply going to repeat it, and I can copy and paste here because there's only a couple things I'm going to change. The student's last name is, and I'm going to type in computer science, and I'm going to spell it correctly so I can get to it. Last name, and then I need to put out their ID number, or output their ID number. The student's ID number is, and then computer science. And because it's a student data type, I must select which data type I'm working with here. So computer science dot ID number. And that would be ID, not UD. And then the last one, the student's grade level is, and all I'm going to do one more time, yeah, I need to put spaces between these so it doesn't all run together. There we go. Ampersand is computer science dot grade level. And then I'll throw in a console.readline to pause my program. So I'm going to save it, and then we're going to run it and see how it works. Okay, so we are running our program. We're going to type in the first name. We'll do Johnny. The last name of the student, Wiggs, I guess. That sounds good. Enter the ID number. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then enter the grade level. We'll say Johnny Wiggs is in 11th grade. So what we should see here is the console is going to clear, and then we're going to output using our custom data type. The student's first name is Johnny. His last name is Wiggs. His ID number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's in 11th grade, or grade level 11. And we can see right here in our code, let me put our program back up. Right here in our code, we're referring to our custom data type. Computer science is our variable that we have defined as student. And down here in my student structure, my record, I have said I want student to have an ID number, a first name, last name, and grade level. So instead of having these multiple times, I can group it together. I can say, okay, my computer science class as student, I can enter all my students. That is what a record is. That is how you accept input for them. That's how you use output for them. If you have any questions, please post a comment below. We'll see you guys in the next video.